Welcome. I'm going to be talking about time today, and specifically we're going to go over a few of the areas as far as what time is construed, as far as defining activities, sequencing them, controlling the schedule, and various other things that go into ensuring that your schedule and your projects stay on time and do what they need to, and you exhibit and use all the estimated resources and durations that you put into play. I'm going to also go into the change structure and system of how to take your WBS and to move it into a Gantt chart, so to speak, and a progression of how that's going to work. So let's go ahead and get this started. So back to the gold card, which I always like to do a quick snapshot of all that. It says cost, schedule, scope, what's the problem, stakeholders, customers. All right. When you define your activities, just to kind of rekindle, you decompose the scope of what needs to get done. What are the customer's problems, again, what are all the sequencing that needs to get taken care of, and how that's all going to access and go into what it needs to. You assess the organization and make sure that they have everything they need to get this done, whether it's certain products, hardware, software, whatever, ensuring that they have the tool sets, the skill sets, and the personnel to do what needs to be done. Otherwise, you're going to have to game plan and plan for vendors, outsourcing and contracting people in order to get the work done. Now, from the beginning, you set up pretty much like an activities list or your WBS, right? To go from there, you have predecessors, successors. You pretty much have a hierarchy, a setup of how this schedule needs to go. And I always throw the caveat, like scheduling software is great, and we're going to utilize a Gantt chart in a little bit as far as how to do the progression portion of it. Now, how project pieces link together, there's finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, and start to finish, which is rarely used. So I won't discuss start to finish very often. Finish to start is the default. Like something has to complete before another thing starts. It's a very systematic, hierarchical-based structure of like, object B can't start until object A is over, and goes through that mentality and system for it. And you want to make sure that you work off there. There's a start to start, meaning that things actually have to start at the same time in order for them to finish either at the same time or in sequence. There's certain parts of the project that might need to finish together or finish to finish. So even though two things on the project might start at different times, those need to be completed at the same time before the next portion can go down there. All right, so all these are used as far as creating your progression of where this project needs to go and timelining what parts of your work breakdown structure need to get done in certain hierarchical order, and what order they need to go into, and what needs to start before it finishes, what needs to finish at the same time, what needs to start at the same time, etc. So like I said, finish to start is something has to finish in order for another thing to start. Start to start means these things have to start at the same time, and finish to finish means these things have to finish at the same time. In a nutshell, it's just part of the process. Those are the different examples. Now you have to estimate your resources of who and what I have to actually accomplish each of this task. So whether it's mowing a lawn, whether it's creating a giant bunch of robots, it doesn't make a difference. You want to make sure that you have what resources you have in place, not just raw materials, but also expertise and ability. The interns, droid army, Dr. Insano, and scientists, so to speak, it doesn't matter, but you want to make sure that you know their limitations and know exactly what they're going to be putting into play. And you want to know who you actually have to do the work and who else could do it if you actually needed somebody else to do it. And when you go into the estimation of the duration of certain parts of the project, you have to remember that there's a finite amount of resources. There's not an infinite amount. So you have to be very cognitive of there's only a certain amount of time, there's only a certain amount of money, there's only a certain amount of time that people can work, there's only a certain amount of resources, whether it's like plastics or metals or whatever it is that they're actually putting together, all right? And then, so you have to come up with really good estimates of time durations and allocation of this workload and these objectives that you're going to be doing. So how do you actually estimate that? Use past experiences, experts, weighted averages. You compare similar tasks. All those different things are actually really good. And also make sure that you have a time reserve as far as extra allocated resources and time just in case you need so in order to move through the process. A big part of a project manager's title and job is controlling the schedule. All right. I will tell you this from experience. It will never go smooth or perfect. So there are always going to be issues with your scheduling. So you have to make sure that you plan for that situation and that you plan accordingly to contingency for it. Okay. So there's an earned value management system. It's not what you plan, it's what you can get done, so to speak. So essentially what you know you can actually finish and complete. There's critical path analysis of what tasks have to actually get done on the plan, meaning like an MVP or minimal viable product. What are the most intricate, crucial parts of this project that have to get done in order for this to actually be even deemed completed, right? You want to make sure you keep pressure to keep the milestone dates as far as what needs to get done, whether it's adding more people to the fire, if it's adding more extra hours, making people work through the weekend, whatever you need to do to keep those milestone dates. Make sure you pay and incentivize people to do that, but you still want to make sure that you meet those deadlines so you can stay on task and on point, because pushing the schedule is not always a feasible thing and not something that might be okay with. And all time is money. So if a project gets pushed longer, that's additional resources, it's additional money, etc. So try to keep those timetables and keep that working the best way you can. Now the creating a schedule portion, which is a huge part of this week and typically is the majority part of these assignments that you're going to be seeing. So you start with your WBS, all right? The work breakdown structure of how you itemize all the things that need to get done, that's how it starts, all right? You take those pieces and you assign employees to work, and you assign dates of completion, all right? This is the foundation and beginning part of what is a Gantt chart or a progression chart. There's burn downs, there's a bunch of different terminologies for it, but it's pretty much a progression of work showing that there's a certain person delegated and accountable for it, and that there's a progression chart of how long it needs to get done and how far it's getting pushed to get done, all right? Now, from there, you build your actual progression Gantt chart, and you keep updating and adjusting this Gantt chart as the project goes. Now, you're going to ask me, like, what's a Gantt chart? Well, a Gantt chart looks like this. The purpose is to keep track of the project progression. It's used to inform whoever and you how the project is actually working. It's broken up based on tasks, and it can go as granular as hours and minutes of a day, and it goes longevity of days and weeks and times depending on how you need to. The one that I'm presenting to you here has, if you notice it, I hope my arrow catches, you have your tasks over to the left here, and you list, these are just, like I said, this is a complete example, but there's tasks associated with the main majority thing. This can be research, this can be construction, it can be whatever, right? And then these sub parts of the WBS are the actual tasks that need to get done within this hierarchy order. And then these have timelines of when they're getting finished, and then these initials over here are the people that are assigned to it. And so that's how you build out the Gantt chart, right? You say, okay, so activity 1 is going to take Monday through Friday, and that's going to be assigned to whoever. But it's also going to continue into the next week, and it's also still going to be assigned. So it's got a progression here of how that's going to work, and this activity 1 has to be the start. So this is a start to finish, and then these two are start to start, and these 3 right here are finish to finish, or these 2 are finish to finish. These are both start to start, finish to finish, and you notice how these all kind of tie together. Now, this is how you can keep track of the progression. Now, what does usually happen with various softwares that build Gantt charts for you, and even if you are doing it in an Excel spreadsheet, which I have files for you to do, and I'll show you in a little bit, but it's to show how far you're getting along in the project and that you're staying on the timeline that's allocated for it. Because when you create your Gantt chart, you immediately assign a certain duration of time to each individual task and part of the project. When you do that, that's going to be ingrained, and that's what it's supposed to be. Now, as it moves, you can allocate and show a progression of how far it's going through there. So just imagine, for instance, like activity 1, as Monday completes, like this color would change. As Tuesday completes, this color would change. As Wednesday completes, this color would change. If the progression gets halted or stops in any way, shape, or form, the progression charts and the coloring, the percentage of completion would stop. And then if it got to Thursday, Friday, and then starting Monday, you're still on activity 1, there's a trigger to say, hey, we're behind, why are we behind? And then you can address it right then and there. That's the whole purpose of the Gantt, is to ensure that progression is happening, and when progression doesn't happen, that you can see it firsthand and you can get on it proactively and be very, very quick to react when things get behind. That's the whole purpose of